Excellent. Okay, welcome everyone to another workshop with Dr. Megan Lee. This time we're talking about using Qualtrics for designing surveys. I put a couple of bits of information in the chat box for you to become a member of the Southern Cross Postgraduate Association, and the recording will go out maybe tomorrow, so we'll let you know. So welcome everyone, and thanks for your attendance. And yeah, over to you, Megan. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alison. Welcome everybody to using Qualtrics to design surveys. A little bit of information about me first. I'm Dr. Megan Lee. I'm at Bond University. I teach statistics and I teach research methods into the psychology degree at Bond. If you have any questions about Qualtrics after we finish today, feel free to email me at any time. I'm happy to field any questions. If you are interested in my research, and we are doing a live survey from data that I collected last year. So the examples that I use today are from my actual research. So if you are interested in my research, feel free to follow my socials or have a look at my website. It's got all my stuff on there, all my presentations, all my publications, things like that. So you can also find all the recordings from these on there as well. So if you can't find it on the YouTube, it's also on my webpage. Yeah, so that's me. I originally did my PhD at Southern Cross University and I finished in June of 2022. And whenever I do these workshops for the Southern Cross Postgraduate Association, I always like to give the association a shout out because I had a little bit of a rough trot in my PhD, but the Postgraduate Association was always there for me and advocated for me and supported me throughout some of my really tough times. And I don't think that I would have finished my PhD if it wasn't for the support that I got from the Southern Cross Postgraduate Association. And I built networks and friendships with people who are also members who are now kind of my lifelong friends, and I still am in contact with, mostly from the Faculty of Education. There wasn't very many health PhDs when I was going through. So if you haven't already, I would highly recommend becoming a member of the SCPA. Go to Praxis. It's just an amazing opportunity. And I really, truly believe that a PhD is not just about doing the thesis and getting in there, and honors as well. It's not just about that. It's about the people that you meet along the way, the networking that you get to do, and also like the experiences of the PhD rather than actually just writing the whole thesis. And the Southern Cross Postgraduate Association is all about that. Now, I know most of the people who have enrolled today are actually honors psych students. So I might go around and just get everybody to, and feel free to put this in the chat if you don't feel comfortable to put your microphone on, but just introduce yourself. Who are you? What degree are you doing? If you know what your thesis is, let us know kind of what topic you're doing, and also what level of understanding of Qualtrics do you have, from 0 being absolutely nothing, haven't never logged in or signed up, all the way up to 10 being I've used Qualtrics in surveys before, I'm just here for a refresher, like Louise. So if you want to type that in, or feel free to turn your microphones on and let us know. Who would like to go first?
So I'll set the ball rolling. Thank you, Megan. Thank you so much. And it's wonderful to see how you've progressed. I was a little bit aware of when you were going through with your PhD. So well done and great information.
Thank you.
My PhD is quite grown up now. I got mine in 2008. And what I've found is that there's lots of wonderful changes that happen to the software that we use. Some of the upgrades are quite easy and we can fall into them quite quite quickly, but others aren't. And so I really am here for a refresher. I myself have 4 lovely new honours students. I also have my own PhD students, but I have found Qualtrics a really good and useful tool. So lovely to have you here and to tell us what's new and what works well, Megan.
Amazing, Louise. Thank you. And if you ever want to send your students to my website to watch the recordings for this, feel free to do that. I've put them up there basically for my students because if they ever need help with Qualtrics, I just send them there rather than sit with them every time and say the same thing over. But there's also, what other things do we do, Alison? We do beginner statistics, intermediate statistics, and 2 advanced statistics workshops. We've got one on qualitative research and one on how to do systematic reviews and systematic literature searching. So if you ever want to send your PhD students, yeah, cool.
Fantastic. I shall take that website. Thank you.
Who have we got here? Michelle has never used Qualtrics. That's okay. That's exactly what we're here for today. Katie is currently completing her psych honours, studying perfectionism, neuroticism in elite dancers and the effects of burnout. Amazing topic. Never used Qualtrics before, hoping to get some useful info to help build the survey. Perfect. Andrew is a psych honours student with a focus on teacher burnout and intention to leave the profession. Qualtrics experience around a 3. That's really cool as well. I like that. So like a psych honours, but also an education psych. Brandon is doing an honours psychology. Thesis was going to be on childhood adversity and adult psychopathology, but it might be a problem with ethics, depending on how you word the questions, yes. My supervisor and I are hoping to use anonymous surveys to counteract it. If not, we are going to change direction. I have never used Qualtrics. Okay, great. Does anyone else want to share? Okay. So it looks like we've got quite a ranging levels of experience in Qualtrics, which is completely fine. We start from the very basics and we move our way up. I'm going to give you advice on from logging in and signing into Qualtrics all the way up to what to do after you have completed your survey. So downloading it into SPSS and Excel for data cleaning and data analysis. So I'll show you the whole range of information that you need. Keeping in mind what Louise said, there's been lots of changes and upgrades to Qualtrics. I know most of them, but I don't know every single thing, and sometimes there are questions that I cannot answer. If that is the case, I will write your question down and I will find out the answer and I will give the answers to Alison and she can share them with the PowerPoint slides and the recording links and things like that after the workshop. So let's get started, shall we? So before we even look at logging into Qualtrics, there are things that you need to have prepared before you build your survey. The 3 main things that you need to have prepared, and you should have these for your ethics application. And quite often in your ethics application, you also need to include the Qualtrics survey or the survey questions that will be in Qualtrics at least. Usually we find that giving the ethics committee the actual PDF of the Qualtrics program in our ethics application is better because they can see exactly what the participants will experience, which is what ethics wants to see. So usually this is all part of your ethics preparation, your ethics application. So in saying that, you will need your participant information sheet. Now, SEU has a template for that. So I can send that to Alison. She can forward it to you. You'll need a list of all your survey questions and your pre-validated scales. Now, I'll show you this in a moment and I'll explain exactly what that means. And then your debrief statement. So what are you going to say to your participants at the end of the survey, giving them things like lifeline numbers and things just in case the survey has impacted their emotions or their feelings. So let's have a look at that very first. So looking at the participant information sheet. So this is mine. And today we are going to be using an example from a survey that I completed and collected last year. The project was about the association between vegan, vegetarian dietary patterns and depressive symptoms in adults. But one of the key things about this particular project was that we were interested in participants who had been vegetarian or vegan for their entire life. Because we had done other surveys previously, and we found that in these surveys, these cross-sectional surveys, we couldn't tell how long participants had been vegan or vegetarian for, how long they would stay vegan or vegetarian for, and this very cross-sectional nature of the survey where we're getting information about their diet and their depressive symptoms at one time point wasn't actually very helpful. Now, to overcome that, I'm like, well, how are we going to figure this out? I'm like, okay, let's talk to participants who have always been plant-based, who have never eaten meat. And then that will give us a much better indication of the symptoms of depression and the diet quality of this population. So that was our study we collected last year. So the participant information sheet should have your title. And as I said, SCU has a template for this. Who you are, what your responsibilities are in the project, what the responsibility of the participant is in the project, how long the survey will go for, what it includes, including what type of questions they will be asked, that it's voluntary, that their information is confidential, numbers for the SCU Human Research Ethics Committee, what to do if something goes wrong during the survey, so who to contact, who they can contact if they're impacted by the survey in any way. So that should all be in this participant information sheet. And we must always make sure that our surveys on Qualtrics have this as the very first thing that a participant sees. Without that, we are breaking ethics, and it's not very good. You could be in a lot of trouble. The second thing that we need is a debrief document, which is just what you're going to say at the end of your survey. So saying thank you to the participants rather than just letting them end the survey and on their way. Remind them about the ethical implications of the survey. It was confidential, it was voluntary, you had the right to withdraw at any time. It's anonymous, no personal identifying information will be released to anyone. If you would like a copy of the findings, give them the opportunity to enter their email address if they want to. That needs to be sent to a different Qualtrics link, and I can show you how to do that so that their email address and their identifying information or their answers can't be matched. Again, contacts for the research team, contacts for Lifeline, contacts for the Human Research Ethics Committee for that particular university, so for SCU. Those are two very important things, and without them, you are breaching your ethics. So I'll show you how to put them in as well. And then the final thing that you need to have prepared before you start constructing your Qualtrics survey is all of the questions that you will be asking the participants in exactly the form that they will be asked, obviously, so you can build them into the survey. Usually starting with your demographic questions, age, gender, income, things like that. Then your pre-validated scales. So if you are doing a survey and you're measuring things like depression and diet quality, other researchers prior to yourself have gone out into the world and done surveys before. And they have made surveys and they have validated them using statistical analysis techniques called factor analysis. It is much wiser to use a scale that has been developed by another researcher and pre-validated than attempting to do your own. If you build your own scale, you then have to pilot it with a certain amount of participants, do a factor analysis on it to make sure that the questions are actually answering the construct that you're looking at. Then you have to go again once it's validated and continue on with your actual data study. So more participants again. So you remove having to do all of that by using a pre-validated scale. This is one that I always use, and across my career, I will always use the same one just so that all of my research can be comparable to itself and to other research that's used this particular scale. So this is the Center for Epidemiological Studies of Depression scale. The reason I use this is because I do a lot of epidemiology, which is health-related factors. So this scale has 20 questions on a Likert scale from 0, rarely or none of the time, to 3, most of all of the time. So 0, 1, 2, and 3. The scores range from 0. So if someone scores rarely on every single one of these 20 questions, they receive a 0 in total. And if a participant scores a 3 on or most or all of the time on every single one of these questions, they will receive a score of 60. So the range of scores ranges from 0 to 60, with higher scores indicating more depressive symptoms. Now, this is really important information to understand as you build your Qualtrics survey, because Qualtrics does this fun thing where it actually makes its own decisions about the scale numbers. So for this one, Qualtrics would put column 1 is 1, column 2 is 2, column 3 is 3, column 4 is 4. And if you take that and put it into your data analysis software or into Excel, it will be coded wrong. And then you will be not comparing this to other research. So I'll show you when we get into Qualtrics itself how to recode those values so they're the same as the actual pre-validated scale. So that's our depression scale. Now, when we go into our data analysis, we give each participant a score between 0 and 60, and that's their depressive score overall. And then there's a dietary screening tool where we are measuring diet quality. So our research question is higher diet quality associated with less depressive symptoms, and is a lower diet quality associated with more depressive symptoms in people who have been vegetarian for their entire life? So we're asking the dietary screening tool question, which is a validated scale that's been used across Australian populations in particular on diet quality. So this one looks a little bit different to our Likert style questions in our CESD, or our Center of Epidemiological Scale of Depression. These are more multiple choice questions. So Qualtrics gives us the opportunity to be able to use multiple different ways of questioning as well, which is really helpful. But you'll see here, question 1 is 0, 3, and 5. Question 3 is 0, 1, 2, and 4. Question 5 is 0, 2, and 3. So every one of these multiple choice can everyone see what I'm showing? The Word document of the scales, or can you only see?
I don't think the slides are moving.
Okay.
Sorry.
I will go back.
I can see this slide Qualtrics preparation.
Oh, really? Okay. Thank you for letting me know.
Okay.
Oh, I've just been talking that whole time about these Word docs and you can't see them. Okay. I'll stop sharing and see if I can share screen. It doesn't have the option to share the actual screen anymore. It will only let me share. This is interesting. The files. Okay, that's fine. I will just do them separately. So can everyone see the participant information sheet?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, good. All right. I'll just quickly go back over what I said, but not in as much detail. So your participant information sheet is very, very important to do first before you have do your survey. Here is all the information on it. You will just have to copy and paste this into Qualtrics, and I'll show you that in a second. Secondly, this is your debrief document. Again, just letting the participants know, thanking them for their time, what the survey was about, that it was anonymous, things like that, where to go if you need information, lifeline numbers, research ethics committee numbers. Then this is your survey questions. Can everyone see the survey questions? Yep. Okay, cool. So as you can see here, you've got your demographic questions, gender, age, height, weight. This one should only ever be asked if it's relevant to your research question. Don't ask questions that are sensitive like this unless it's super specific. Now, in our study on diet quality and depressive symptoms, BMI is actually a very important factor because BMI influences diet quality, and also BMI is related or associated with depressive symptoms. So we ask height and weight questions and we calculate BMI ourselves. So that is an important one. But if it's not related, please don't ask it. Marital status, education, all your demographic questions. And here is that Centre for Epidemiological Studies of Depression scale that I was talking about. As you can see, column 1, rarely or none of the time, that should be a 0. Some or a little of the time, all these should be a 1. Occasionally, all of these should be a 2, and most or all of the time, these should be scored as a 3. And we'll get to that when we get actually into Qualtrics. With 20 different questions asking these about depression. Now you'll notice, question 1, I was bothered by things that usually don't bother me. Yes, that most or all of the time makes sense for a 3. But question 4, I felt I was just as good as other people most or all of the time. That one's reversed. So it's a reverse question. So I'll show you in Qualtrics, you can also reverse code your questions. Eons ago, I was told to put the demographics at the end as they are likely to put people off. However, once they have done most of the survey, they have more trust and will share. That's a good point, Louise, a very good point. And survey structure like this is a really interesting question and something that you should probably talk to your team about. I usually do demographic questions first because they're the easiest ones before you get into more cognitively challenging questions, particularly for my research where depression is the most important outcome variable. I don't want to just be like, right, how are you feeling? So that, yeah, and it just depends on your, on the topic as well.
Yeah, and on the flow, I agree. You don't want to do that, but sometimes you can edge in easier. So you could go in with the eating first and then the depression.
Yeah, that's so true. Another thing that you have to take into consideration is if you want to put your most important variables at the beginning or early in your survey, because if participants drop out because they're fatigued or bored of your survey, at least they've completed the most important variables. So for this subject, depression is our outcome variable. It's the most important. And then the diet quality questions are our independent variable, or our that variable, our independent variable, are our predictor variable. So I will always make sure that those two are at the front end of my survey, and then things that are control variables or covariates like exercise and sunlight exposure and sleeping patterns, I'll put at the bottom, because it doesn't matter as much if participants miss those questions. So yeah, very good point Louise makes about order of your survey. and it's definitely worth having a chat about with your team. Right. So as you can see, this is a Likert scale for the CESD depression scales. And then we have our diet quality screening tool. So as you can see, question 1 scored 0, 3, and 5. So is question 2, but then question 3 is 0, 1, 2, and 4. So this whole Likert scale wouldn't work for the dietary screening tool because all of the questions are scored differently and they give different weight to different food items. So if you eat fish or seafood that is not fried, you get a score of 5 if you do that more than once a week, because fish is considered to be a healthy diet proponent. Whereas, where's another one? And then all your veggies, like if you eat cauliflower or broccoli more than 3 times a week, you get an 8. So that's quite a good score. If you never eat them, you get a 0. So you can see how this is measuring diet quality. And then at the bottom, we have our favorite question. How often do you eat takeaway, like McDonald's, KFC, things like that? And then if you eat them never or less than once a week, you get a high score of 5. 3 times or more a week, you get a 0 for healthy diet quality. So for this scale, and this is important to know before you do construct your Qualtrics survey, scores range between 0 and 105 across all of those questions. So when you put it into your data analysis software, you will create a total score for each participant. They will score between 0 and 105. Higher scores equal greater diet quality. The cutoff for nutritional risk for this scale is anyone who has a score of less than 60 is at risk. And everyone above 75 is not at risk of poor diet. And then again, questions 3, 19, and 20 need to be reverse scored if you've got vegan and vegetarian participants. Because if you have a look at 19 and 20, those are about meat. So if we ask a vegan or a vegetarian, how often do you eat lunch meats or deli meats? And they say 3 or more times a week, which they won't, they'll get a 5, a high score. So if they're vegan or vegetarian, this one should be switched. In fact, I reckon this one is scored incorrectly for diet quality. I reckon it should be around the other way. And same with bacon and sausage. Right, so that's your diet quality. We also asked the depression, anxiety, and stress scale in this one, and it's a Likert scale similar to the depression scale. You would put that in the same way. Then we ask about social connectedness. Again, you would put this in Qualtrics in this way. And then we have the physical activity questionnaire, which I find the most difficult to use, even though there's only like 10 questions, 7 questions. So let's get to Qualtrics itself. So the first thing that we're going to do is, I'm going to share my PowerPoint again. I think it's this. Share. Okay, can we all see the PowerPoint? Has it moved to the next slide? Yay! Nice. Yeah, it's quite tricky because we have to flick between the slides and Qualtrics to do this. So hopefully it's streamlined as much as possible for you. So this is Qualtrics. Can everybody here put their hand up if they have logged in and downloaded Qualtrics? It's free from SEU. Louise has it. Katie, not yet. Andrew has. Okay, cool. Well, I'll do a little live example of building the survey through the Qualtrics system. So the first thing that will happen is once you go to the Qualtrics homepage, which is this here, you can log in. And to log in, you will need to use your SCU email, obviously. And the login page looks like this. So use your SCU username and your password, and you should be able to sign in. If you haven't got an account yet, you'll need to sign up for one. If you find it difficult to sign up, just contact IT. They'll be able to help you with that. So let's go and have a look at the actual Qualtrics page. I will throw this over here. And I will stop sharing that. And I'll start sharing Qualtrics. Can everyone see the Qualtrics homepage? Yay, good. Tell me at any time if it's not switching backwards and forwards. So this is the Qualtrics homepage. On the homepage, you can see the surveys that you are currently working on here on the left-hand menu bar. You can create a new project, which is what we will be doing today. And you can have a look at the active surveys that you have going and how many responses you have. So for the food choices survey, we have been working on, it's closed now. We have 120 parents who are giving us information about their lunch boxes or making their children's lunch boxes and the healthy food choices that they have made. The project that I'm working on, dietary patterns and depressive symptoms in adults, that was with my honours student last year. That one had 725 total responses. So you can look at all of your different active surveys on here and how they are going or tracking with respondents, all on your homepage. The menu bar here gives you a whole lot of different options, but the one that you will predominantly use is projects. In the projects page, you will have projects that are shared with me. And these are all projects that other academics or other collaborators have built and then sent you an email and said, please be a collaborator with me on my survey. So that way that everybody can share the exact same survey, preview it, publish it, and be able to track how the participants are going and how many you've got, how many responses you've got. From this page, you can click on any of the surveys that you're currently working on and look at all the details. You can also look at projects and programs that you have shared with other people. So what happens if a collaborator sends you an email saying, please be a collaborator on my survey? They will have a collaboration code in that email. You would then come into Qualtrics here and click on this Enter Collaboration Code button and put the collaboration code in from the email, and it will automatically upload that survey to your page, and it will stay there until you either get removed from the project or you delete the project. Excellent. From this page, you can also create a new project, which is what we are going to be doing. So today we are going to be working on that example that I shared with you before. Are there any questions about Qualtrics overall before we go into building a survey? No? Okay. Is everyone ready to build a survey? Yay. Nice. All right. So create project. And in the create project page, you can import data from a previous survey if you would like to, or you can use these templates that Qualtrics has provided. Usually they're not that useful for academics. The academic tab is down the bottom here. There's one for informed consent. There's one for a student satisfaction survey. But usually you build your own from scratch by clicking the survey from scratch button. You can also watch this little video on how to create a survey that will take you through some of the key things that we look at today, and just click the Get Started button at the bottom here. We will name our project Veg for Life, Diet, Quality, and Depression, which will create a blank survey. If you click this drop-down box, you can also copy questions or copy a whole survey over from an existing project. Now, for me, in this Vegetarian for Life project, this would be a very helpful choice, because most of the questions in this survey I have used in previous surveys on diet and depression. And I would just need to add a couple of extra questions in there about being vegetarian for life. So for me, I would probably want to copy an entire survey from an existing project over and then amend it for this particular population. But today we are going to create a blank survey from scratch and create that project. So this is the page that will pop up once you have created a project. And this, you can manage your survey from these menu options over in the left-hand side. So you've got your builder, which is building your survey, and then you've got the flow of the survey, how it looks and feels, options for your survey, quotas, and then your translations. We will have a look at these once we've created a little bit of a survey so we can see what they all mean. Across the top, you have your workflows, your distributions, your data analysis, your results and reports, which become important once your survey has been created and you're ready to distribute it to participants, share it with your collaborators, and start looking at some of the analysis of what is going on in your survey as you are collecting data. Right, so the very first thing that you want to do is start building blocks of questions. Now, on this left-hand side here, you have all of the different types of questions or boxes that you can build into your survey, including multiple choice, pure text entry where participants can write freely into a box. Text or graphic is when you want to put in a Word document or any type of illustration that you don't want a participant to answer to. Your matrix table, which will be helpful for the CESD, Likert type scales. There's so many different options here. So I think the very first thing that you want to do when you are creating a survey is to create a block here that will protect your survey. So the reason I say this, and I've had personal experience where we were asking participants, or we sent a survey out asking participants about their perceptions and misconceptions of organic food products in Australia. And we had, for some reason, we got trolled and we had thousands and thousands and thousands of answers or participants respond to our survey across a very short period of time, about halfway through data collection. We realized that it was bots, and the bots were saying horrible things about organic foods and vegetarians and plant-based diet. So it was someone maybe trying to push us off our agenda, and it was likely a bot because it was every couple of seconds we were getting a respondent. So to avoid things like that happening, the very first thing you want to look at is go to question type and add a captcha verification. And this is just letting the survey know that the person is not a bot. So for question 1, I would write captcha And this little box here, or this little heading here, is what will be used as your variable names when you transfer your data from Qualtrics into SPSS or into R or into Excel. So these boxes here that I've just written into, they're your variable names. So whatever you want your variables to be named inside of that. That way you don't have to clean the data later inside your software program. You can do it from here. So you can create a little box about, please indicate below that you are not a robot. And later, when we have developed the entire survey, I will also show you how to put a reCAPTCHA on, where Qualtrics will also do in that box. One of those ones that are really hard to do, where you have to pick what is a street light or what is a crossing in a box of an image. So I'll show you how to do that as well. So always protecting our survey first from bots and trolls, which is fun. And we put that in a whole block by itself. The next thing that you want to do is make sure that you don't forget to add a block for your participant information sheet. Participant information sheets. Then we add a question of free text. So text and graphic will allow us to add words and not require the participant to respond to it. So we go back to our participant information sheet and we copy and paste directly into this question box. Now, the problem is that Qualtrics will make it all boxed together like that. So you will need to space it out. Don't forget to put your ethics application approval number in. That's something that's quite often forgotten, and I have done myself. So just spacing it out. And later on, once we've completed the survey, I'll show you how to apply the SCU template so that it is formatted in the same colors and fonts that SCU prefers. So just spacing that out a little bit. Like that, something like that. And then later on, we can go back and preview what that will look like and change it up if we are still unhappy with how it looks. Right here where it says question 2, you want to write our variable name, which would be participant information sheet or PIS. Keep in mind that when you put it into SPSS, it doesn't like spaces, so variable names should be short without spaces. If you need a space, use an underscore instead of one. So that's our second block. First block is our CAPTCHA. Second block is our participant information sheet. Then our third block, we would be putting in our demographic questions, if that is the order that we have chosen to do it in. If not, we would put whatever questions we felt worked best as our first kind of warm-up questions. So I would name this block demographic questions, and then I would begin my adding questions. So the first question that we want to put in is the gender question. So our question in our survey sheet is multiple choice. Now, when you click on the type of question, you get a new menu over in the left-hand side that gives you options for each of your questions. And you can change the style of question from this menu as well. So answer type, allow only one answer or allow multiple answers. So for gender, you would only allow one answer. Male, female, transgender, binary, don't would not like to include or other for your gender questions. But if it's something like, which of these social media accounts do you use? Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat? Then you would allow multiple answers. So that's where you can change that option there. Then you've got your number of choices. So for our gender question is specifically worded, and you have to make sure that you use very appropriate, non-stigmatizing answers to your questions. What gender do you identify as? Question mark. Then Qualtrics, using AI technology, gives you answers that are usually used for this question. Now, in our answer, we have male, female, transgender, non-binary, and prefer not to say. So we would like to add transgender to this question. So over here, with our number of choices, we can click on add, and then we can put transgender into that box. Now, if you would like transgender to be above non-binary, you can move it up, you can move it down, you can remove the choice from this box. Then with the final one, prefer not to answer, just making sure that lowercase. This is one of the things that you have to keep in mind. Do you want all of your answers to be lowercase? Do you want them to be upper and lowercase? So that's a decision that you have to make about formatting as well. I actually would like another choice for this box. I would like a 6th choice, which is other, and then I would like to give the participants the option to specify. So I'll write, please specify. And then in the little drop down, there is allow text entry. Now that's given us the option to let them tick other, and then in the box create or what their other will be. Now in SPSS and Excel, this free text entry will create a new column where participants who have clicked other have put their text entry in, and you can, as a researcher, decide whether or not those other categories fit into the genders that you have displayed, or you can create a whole new variable or a whole new choice from ones that you've missed. And this happens quite often to us when I was working with the Faculty of Education, where we would ask, what degree have you done? And we would give up to year 10, up to year 12, bachelor degree, master's degree, PhD, TAFE. There were lots of other different degrees that we hadn't thought about, and participants would write it in the other box, and we would just create a whole new option for the ones that we had missed. So that is quite a common thing to do. Again, here is your variable name. So for gender, we would just call it that. And that's the gender question done. So that's for a multiple choice question. For a question like age, if you just want the participants to write their age in years, you can do add question, text entry, single line, and then you can variable name is age. Then we want to ask, what is your age in years? And then that gives the participants the opportunity to write their age in years in free text. Be very aware when you give participants the opportunity to write anything free text, it's like the Wild West. People will put random things in there that don't make sense. In the data cleaning stage of analysis, you will make choices about whether or not those were correct, and like a mistake in typing, or you just remove some of the ones that are wrong. So if someone writes 430 years, I would assume that they wrote 43 years and accidentally hit a 0 at the end. And I would change that to 43 years. But when we do the height and weight variable, we do that free text. What is your weight in kilograms approximately? What is your height in centimeters? And participants will put meters in, or people will put in totally random things, or they'll put also text in, they'll put KGS in. That can all be taken out or amended at the data cleaning stage. So don't worry too much, but just be aware if you are giving them free text entry, make it as minimal as possible because it does add extra work at that data cleaning stage. So that's our demographic questions. Another thing that for this survey in particular on vegetarian for life, diet quality and depression is that we need to make sure before we start any of the demographic questions, whether or not our participants have actually been plant-based for their entire life. Because quite often people will read recruitments on social media, get really excited, click on it, but not actually be part of the inclusion criteria. So, for example, I was doing a body image in the postpartum survey and I had a few men do it when it was for women's body image after they'd had children. So we had to, it would have been very helpful to have a block like this. So after the participant information sheet, so it's very important that everybody who clicks on the survey sees the participant information sheet. After the participant information sheet and before you get into the bulk or the body of your survey, you want to add a block and call it qualifier. Add a question, and it just can be multiple choice, yes or no question. Call it qualifier as well, so that your variable name, when it comes into the data analysis software, you know what it is. And then just ask your qualifying question. Have you been a vegetarian or vegan for your entire adult life? So that's your qualifier. And then you want a yes or no answer. Yes. We don't want maybe, so we'll click on number of choices and take away that choice. Now, what we want to happen is if a participant clicks yes on this question, it takes them to the demographic questions and to the rest of the survey. If the participant clicks no on this qualifier, they aren't in our inclusion criteria, they're excluded. So if they do that, we want to put a skip logic. So just scroll down. So this menu on the left-hand side, which is giving us the options for our question, we want to click on skip logic. Yes? Sorry, I thought there was a question. You want to click on skip logic and then skip from the qualifying question to the end of the survey if no was selected. So if they said, no, I haven't been a vegetarian or vegan my entire adult life, great. That'll skip them all the way to the end of the survey where it says, thank you for completing our survey. Your answers have been included, something like that. If they click yes, it will just take them to the next one. Now, you can use these skip logics all the way through your survey to skip to and from questions if there are irrelevant questions if someone answers a certain question in a certain way. So this skip logic is really, really helpful. So, any questions before we move on?
Hello. It's
Hello.
I'm sorry I was hi. I'm sorry I was a bit late. I put my name down for this and then unfortunately I had to squeeze it in between other Zoom sessions.
Sure.
And I was just wondering, will the workshop be available as a recording?
Sure. Alison will pop the recording link up again. And I
Thank
think
you.
the recording gets sent out, doesn't it, with the PowerPoint slides and things, Alison?
Yes, I'll send out the recorded link and PowerPoints. Yeah, for sure. Check the
Thank you.
chat box too, Bridget. I've got the link to the SCPA YouTube channel where
Oh,
the
okay.
links go to. Yeah.
Thank you, Alison.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
So Brandon's got a question. So the majority of students will be adding a pre-existing survey, and we will just add questions to the pre-existing survey to fit our criteria. It depends on how things work, Brendan. Is your supervisor giving you a survey that they have created before? No. Okay. So if that isn't the case, then you will be creating your own survey questions with demographics and pre-validated scales. Is that right? You'll be constructing it yourself? Yeah, so you will be doing exactly this process that I just showed you, where you start from survey from scratch, you create your capture, you put in your participant information sheet, you add a qualifier if there is one, if you want to exclude certain people, and then you begin your survey of demographic questions. Exactly how I've done this. You could even watch the recording while you're creating your survey and follow exactly along with the steps that I've just done. No worries. So what we might do now, we're exactly halfway through the workshop. We might have like a 5-10 minute break, and then we'll come back and I'll show you how to put the Likert scales in as a matrix table. I'll also show you how to put those dietary screening questions in and make each of the multiple choice questions different values. And then I'll show you how to end your survey, and then what to do once you're finished, how to distribute it to your participants, how to collaborate with your supervisors, how to and then how to make sure that the look and feel looks like it's in SCU template, all that kind of thing. See you, Louise. Thank you so much. We'll have to put the links back up, Alison, because once a participant comes in, they can't see the previous messages.
Thank
Oh,
you so
really?
much. That was really, really good, Megan. Thank you. I'm sorry I have to go.
No worries, Louise. If you ever need any help or any questions, just email me.
I shall. Thank you. Bye.
See ya. All right, so we'll come back around 10:40, 11:40, depending on what state you are currently in. All right, thank you, everybody. We'll be back. Okay, I'm back. Give everyone a couple of minutes to come back. Let me know when you're here. Maybe a thumbs up. Bridget's here. Brandon's here. Sebastian's here. Andrew. Katie. Okay, looks like everybody's back. So can everyone see Qualtrics still? I'm just making sure because the share screen is a bit tricky. Yep. Okay, cool. So we've created a capture to protect our survey. We've put our participant information sheet in. We've created a qualifying question that will remove any participants who don't qualify so that we don't have to do it later on in the data cleaning. These are all little time savers. We've created a few demographic questions. Obviously, you'll put all of yours in. The next thing that I wanted to show you is how to create a Likert scale. So the Center of Epidemiological, I'll stop sharing and I'll show you again this survey because this is really, really important. Okay, so can you see the survey questions? And the Center of Epidemiological Studies for Depression Scale. So again, this is really, really important. It's been pre-validated by other researchers, and the importance of putting this into the survey in identical form is very important. Because it's been pre-validated, changing any of the words in the questions or in any of it could unvalidate that scale. So you want to make sure that everything is identical. So the instructions for the survey. So below is a list of ways you might have felt or behaved. Please tell me how often you have felt this way during the past week. Needs to go in identical form. The statements: I was bothered by things that usually don't bother me. I did not feel like eating. My appetite was poor. I felt that I could not shake off the blues, even with help from my family or friends. All need to be identical. If you want to change these in substantial ways, you need to do another factor analysis, which means piloting a factor analysis with 30 to 50 participants before you go and actually collect your proper data. So we don't want to do that. If, for example, your population is different, so if you've got a questionnaire that asks school teachers questions about education and you want to apply that scale to university teachers or academics, you can change small things in the questions that are specific to high school teachers to university academics without impacting the validity of the scale. So you won't need to do that again, that whole factor analysis piloting part. But if you change it in any substantial way, that will have to occur. So particularly for the honours students, if you are changing up questions from pre-validated scales, you definitely need to ask your supervisors first and decide on whether or not you need to do that factor analysis collection. Right, so we have this. I'm going to share the Qualtrics again. Can we all see Qualtrics? Yeah. Okay. So we put all our demographic questions in one block with all different questions. Then we add a block which tells Qualtrics that we're going to move on to our outcome variables. So the block should be called the Center for Epidemiological Scale for Depression. Then we want to add a question, or we can, if you've used the CESD scale before, you can import it from your library. If you've ever used it before, you can also do this with your demographic questions one at a time. So let's add a new question, and we want to add a matrix table. And a matrix table is what you will use for all Likert style questions. In variable name, we would like to put CESD. Then when you upload this scale, this matrix table to SPSS or Excel, each of the lines, each of the statements will be CESD_1, CESD_2. So it will create those variable names for you so you don't have to do it later on, which is another time saver. So here in click to write the question text, this is where it's very important to write identical to what the instructions were. So below is a list of the ways you might have felt or behaved. Please tell me how often, I'll fix that in a second, you have felt this way during the past week. There we go. Nice. So that is your instructions. Then on your scales, you want to tell Qualtrics what these are. So we have rarely or none of the time. Less than 1 day. Then we have some or a little of the time. 1 to 2 days of that week. Then we have occasionally or a moderate amount of time, 3 to 4 days of that week. And then we've got a fourth column that we need to add to this. So over here in our menu, where it says matrix table, it's a Likert style, we're allowing only one answer for each statement. We want to add a fourth scale. So we click here on fourth, and we write in most or all of the time. 5 to 7 days. And they're our Likert scale items. Now, if you want to do these all, so there's 20 questions in this scale. So doing the 20 questions here would take up quite a lot of time. Or if you have like 10 Likert scales for these, you can click on edit multiple, and you can write in each of the columns or each of the scale items and hit enter, and it will create all those columns for you in bulk, which is another time saver. You can also copy and paste them in, which is handy. Same with the statements. So here it was, I was bothered by things that usually don't bother me. But again, we can then go to the statements and we can edit multiple and do it this way. I was bothered by things that don't usually bother me. I did not feel like eating. My appetite was poor. Hard enter. I felt that I could not shake off the blues, even with help from friends and family. Oops. And 4, I felt I was just as good as other people, which is our reverse coded one. So it's the opposite to the other ones. It's worded in the opposite direction. So we apply, and as you can see, these have all been put here. So this is even more handy if you want to copy and paste things in, then it can save you a heap of time in doing it manually. So the next thing that I need to show you in these Likert style tables is once you get to putting this into SPSS or into Excel, Qualtrics does this fun thing where it actually nominates its own codes. Now, we know from looking at the CESD scoring sheet that it's scored 0 in the first column, 1 in the second column, 2 in the third column, and 3 for the third column. But if you go and have a look, Qualtrics has actually nominated its own. It's done it automatically. So scroll all the way down to the bottom where it says recode values. And here it shows you that Qualtrics has coded the columns 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, if you put that into SPSS and you analyze it, it will be incorrect because it's actually 0 to 3, and it'll give you an incorrect total value for each participant. And you won't be able to compare that to other research that's used this scale because it'll be wrong. So we go into recode values and we give the values for the Likert scale the correct scores. So now the scores will be correct. Now, when we finish the survey, I'm going to also show you how you can do it in bulk across the entire survey rather than a question at a time like that as well. Good, so that's our Likert scale done. Obviously, you would put all 20 of the questions in for this block for the scale for depression. Then the next thing that I would do, so this is our outcome variable. So this is our dependent variable. It's very important, so it's at the top. Then we would add our dietary screening tool, keeping in mind that that dietary screening tool, all of the questions were different, so we can't put them into a Likert matrix table in this way. So we would click on the block and we would call it the dietary screening tool. And then we would add a new question, but we want to put the instructions for the entire dietary screening tool first. So we'll go to text graphic. And we can do DST instructions as our variable name, so that when you put it into the data analysis software, you'll know what's going on. And then put your instructions in for the diets tool. The remaining questions in this survey relate to diet consumption, something like that. Then we would add new question, multiple choice, because all of the dietary screening tool questions are multiple choice. We would call it DST _1, so we know it's the first question in the dietary screening tool. When we get to our software, put in your question. How often do you eat whole grain spreads or cereals? This one has 3 questions. Never or less than 1 week. 1 or 2 times per week. And then 3 or more times per week. And then I'll show you once we get to the end of the survey how you can make sure that the recode values are done in bulk across all of those. So there's like 21 of those questions. So doing it manually, each question isn't as useful as doing it in bulk. So I'll show you that when we are done with the survey. So all of my other questions are similar to this. I've got Likert scales for anxiety, stress, and depression. I've got, which can be done the same way as this one here. I've got the social connectedness scale, which is similar to this, which has got 5 scales that we can choose from with 20 questions. But there are other question styles that you can use, which I'll just show you. So add new question. You can also do a slider, which looks like this. We've used this before in our current study on parental food choices for lunchboxes. We asked, on a scale of 0 to 100, how healthy do you rate these lunchbox items? And then we showed them pictures of a banana, sweetened yogurt, a Coca-Cola, a packet of chips, a packet of popcorn, all this sort of stuff. And they slid the scale to where they felt how healthy that lunchbox item was. You could also do many different types. This is what rank order looks like. Let's get to this one. This is what a rank order question looks like, where you can rank things and move them up and down. You could do side by side, which looks like that, with columns and answers side by side. And anytime you're formatting any of the questions, this menu bar, you can add or remove questions, skip logic to another question if someone's answered a certain way. So there's so many different options that you can use. You can get participants to sign the survey if you need that. There's so much different options that you can use for your question styles, which are really helpful. Now, once you have finished, before I get to the finishing of the survey, are there any questions about constructing the Likert scales or the other variables before we move on? That's pretty good. Everybody is on. Sounds like you're understanding everything. That's great. Cool. All right. So the next thing that we are going to look at is how to end your survey and then what to do once you have finished. So we've gone through all of this. The last thing that you want to do is don't forget your debrief statement, basically. So back to your debrief document where you copy and paste into add a block again. And it's important to like kind of be adding blocks rather than putting it all together in one. And I'll show you in a second what the whole survey looks like, so that you can see the look and feel of that. So add a new question, text graphic, copy and paste your debrief in, space it out so that it looks nice. If you've got insert link in, don't forget to do that. So there's your debrief, name, your variable. And then the final thing is making sure that you've got an end of survey message. So we thank you for your time spent taking this survey. Your response has been recorded. Excellent. Now you will see at the bottom any questions that you deleted during your survey construction can be found at the bottom of the survey. So don't empty that bin until you've completely finished and you are fully happy with what you've got, because you might want to go and re-engage with those questions. But if not, empty the bin and your survey is ready. So what do we do once our survey is finished? Once we've done our debrief statement, once we've done our end response, the next thing that we want to do is just check how the survey looks and feels. So you go over here to the left-hand side menu to the little paint roller, and it's look and feel. In look and feel, you will see that if you've signed up with your SCU email, it will already have the SCU template adapted to your survey automatically, which is amazing. So you can just go through this and see what it looks like from a desktop point of view and also what it looks like from a mobile point of view. To do so, you need to click the answers. So that's the reCAPTCHA with the Southern Cross logo. There's your participant information sheet. Have a look at it. Make sure that you're happy with the spacing of it. So you're just checking that everything is good. Spelling, grammar, everything. Have you been? Yes, I've been a vegan or vegetarian. You might also want to see what happens if you click no, where that sends you, because that was the question we had the skip logic attached to. Gender, age. So as you can see, this is in one block. So when you are looking at it on desktop, you'll be able to scroll down, or if you're looking at it on mobile, it'll be on the one page because it was in one block. So female, age, then the next block will pop up, which is our Likert scale. We can have a look at what that looks like if someone was on a mobile, which is very different to the desktop. So in a desktop, it will be like this in the column, but on a mobile, there are little click down boxes to answer each of the questions. And as you can see here, this is what it would look like if someone clicked on the desktop. Make sure your instructions are correct. Make sure all the spelling is correct. Then we've got our instructions about our dietary screening tool, but you can see that it doesn't include any of the variable names or any of the block names that we have put in. So the participants will only see kind of the instructions that you've put in and the questions. They don't even, you can make it so they can't see the question numbers, or you can change that in a second. I'll show you in survey options how to change it so they can see question numbers. There's also a option where the participant on each block can see the percentage of the survey that they've completed as well. So how often do you eat whole grains, breads or cereals? Then your debrief statement, giving you the details, and then your ending, your survey ending. Now here also in look and feel, you can change the layout, you can change the style, you can change the font, but that's really not recommended if you are doing a survey through SCU, because SCU has applied the template of their colors, their font, everything that they are happy with. So it's better to keep it in the SCU template. Here in survey options, yes, save changes. We can create a name so that when we put it on social media and things like that, this is the name that will come up. So something like diet and depression survey. You can write a little blurb for social media about what it is about, what your survey is about. Here is the option where you can turn on or off whether the participants can see the question number or not. Here in responses, you can add a back button. So if you allow your participants to go back in your survey and change answers once they've gone through blocks, you can click this button and it will give them the option to do that. You can allow your respondents to finish later. This one's not super recommended because if participants leave, they very rarely come back. Then you can have a custom error message when a participant accidentally skips a message, skips a question saying, this question is required, please continue. What else have we got here? Availability of the survey. In security, this is a really good tab. So in here in security, you can indicate if the survey can be taken by anyone or if it's invitation only. You can password protect your survey. One of the best ones here is this button here, which prevents multiple submissions. So one of the key elements of research ethics and data analysis is that in surveys, each participant only takes the survey once, and that's for independence. So clicking that will ensure that the same IP address, so the same computer, can't do the survey more than once. This is also handy if someone's trolling you and trying to do multiple questions. And here is where we have the bot detection. So that reCAPTCHA, where it will create that image that a human will need to say, click all the boxes where there is a crossing, or click all the boxes where there is a scooter. That is the reCAPTCHA. So that's really important for security, making sure that you don't get trolled like I did that one time. So there's lots of different options for security that you can look through. Anonymized responses is really important. So that takes the IP address, the location data, and the contact information out of the survey. So Qualtrics will send you into your SPSS or your Excel. It will give you all of that information, but if you click this button, it won't collect that, which is really helpful. And then here are your options for after your survey. So do you want a thank you message loaded at the bottom of your survey? What about if someone's coming back to complete the survey, which is not recommended, and any other email triggers? And then there's also your scoring options. Right. So look and feel is a really, really helpful way of just making sure that your survey is working in the way that you want. Now, another thing that I need to show you inside of the survey is clicking on, say, gender. If gender is super important for your research question, you can make sure that you force the response. So add requirements, if you click on the add requirements box, it will force your participants to complete this question. And if they don't, they'll get an error message saying, please, you must complete this question before moving on to the rest of the survey. And it won't allow them to proceed if they haven't done that. So there is a recommendation for forced responses just because participants, it reduces missing data. But if you do have things like age, height, weight that some people might think are like sensitive, then you can remove the forced response button and only have it for the questions that are necessary. But I would force respond your outcome variable. So you must complete the CESD to be involved. And the reason that I would do this is because when you get to the data cleaning stage, you have to remove all the participants who haven't completed your outcome variable anyway. So this saves you time at the data cleaning stage of removing participants who just didn't complete this variable. So that requirements, force, response is really, really important for these types of questions. Great. So once we've set up our survey, it's all ready to go. We want to pilot the survey. So we can go to preview. And this is very similar to the look and feel, but you can send this preview to your collaborators. So you want to pilot the survey, make sure that it's working properly, send your pilot to 5 or 6 people who are not going to be actual participants and get them to... You're right, Alison?
Oh, I was sorry to interrupt. There is a couple of questions.
I haven't seen
Andrew
the
and
chat.
Sebastian in the chat just before you move on.
Yes.
So Andrew asked about a slider rather than a Likert.
Yes, so you can definitely do sliders. It's definitely possible. I did show the slider before, so that is definitely something that you can do. And it really depends on how your question is framed. And a change like that requires revalidation if the original Likert scale or the pre-validated scale was on a Likert scale, you have to keep it as a Likert scale. You can't change it to a slider if the original wasn't a slider. Because, yeah, you'd have to revalidate factor analysis, things like that. Does it matter whether each scale varies in terms of the amount of items or questions it contains? One scale has 20 questions, another has 6. No, that doesn't matter at all. They're already pre-validated. They're ready to go. It doesn't matter inside your survey whether you've got 20 questions here, 6 questions there. It doesn't have to be consistent. That's a good question. Sorry for missing the questions. So again, this preview box means that you can share it to your collaborators here, which is really helpful. Share your preview to your supervisors to have a look at and give you feedback before you move on to releasing it to the public. So that's one of the things that you need to think about. The next thing that you need to think about is publishing it to the public. So once we want to do that, so we go back to our survey. In distributions, that is where you go to send it to the public. But before you do that, you have to click this button up here called Publish. Publish will publish the survey to the public. It's ready to go at this stage. So don't do that unless you are ready. And then once you have published, you can share the survey with your collaborators so that they can send it out to their network. So to do that, you have to go back into the projects page where all your projects are listed. Find your survey here. Click on the settings ellipses and click on Collaborate. Then you can type in people's email addresses here that you want to collaborate with. If they're from SCU, you can just type their name in. Let's see if this works. Maybe not. Who do I know? Oh, it's not working. Maybe we have to check this way. Or put their email address in, I would think. So you add their email addresses and then you save it and it will send it to your collaborators. The next thing that you want to do once you've sent it out to your collaborators is to start distributing it through social media, through email, and through your personal networks. So to do that, you go back into the survey and up the top here, the distributions tab, click on that. And in the distributions tab, there are multiple ways that you can share the link. So you can email it, you can compose an email directly from Qualtrics, or you can save a reusable link that you can pop on emails or into social media or into anything really. You can save it on the web and you can use anonymous links. And you can give each person in your team a different link so that you can see in the data how many are coming from each different way of recruiting. That's really helpful. There's social media link. There's also mobile links. You can create a QR code for your survey, or you can do an offline app so that you can people can take the survey who don't have internet connection. This is really helpful if you're looking at rural and regional communities, things like that.
So Megan, Katie's asking, should we collaborate with just supervisors? Or Katie, who else would you collaborate with? I guess you might have some critical friends that could give you some feedback, or fellow students or something. I don't know. What do you think?
So you can only share the survey with people who are named on your ethics application. So yeah, so any people, any authors or any researchers who are named on your ethics application, So that'll be your supervisors or other collaborators from other unis or co-supervisors, to share it with your friends. And friends are really, really good and useful, really good and useful for when you want to preview and pilot the survey. So when you go to the preview button, you can send that to your friends, to your family, and they can do this survey and they can see it and give you feedback without actually being able to change the questions or be in the back end of the survey. So you don't really want anyone having access to your survey who could change things that aren't in the research team.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thanks.
really good. Cool. So that's distributing the survey. Then the next thing that you do is, while you're collecting data, you can go into this data and analysis tab, and you can check how many participants are answering your questions. You can look at how they've answered those questions. Obviously, there's nothing in here at the moment because we haven't released this survey. But if we go back and have a look at a survey that we've collected data in, I can show you what that page would look like. So our parent lunchbox survey, open that up, go to data and analysis, give it a bit because it takes a while to open. And this will show you the date that the participant did the survey and then their answers to each of the questions. Over here in results, this is even more useful. You can see a little bit of a mini data analysis that's happening during collection. So it's a live tracking of what the participants are answering. Now, this is really helpful, particularly in the vegan and vegetarian diet quality and depression surveys that we do, because we want to keep the vegan and the vegetarian participants kind of even. So if we go in here and we see there's 20 vegetarians and 85 vegans, then we would, in our recruitment strategy, we would start trying to recruit more vegetarians to get those numbers more even. So this reports section is really handy in looking at small bits of data analysis. This question is, does your child take lunch from home to school? So 85 parents said yes, my child takes a lunchbox. 20 parents said no. Those 20 parents would be excluded from the survey because the survey is about parents' lunchbox choices. So they would be excluded. But this is also a really good piece of information for our paper, because we can say out of 105 participants, 20 of them didn't send lunchboxes. So that's even a piece of data that's interesting, even though it's our inclusion criteria. What's another one here? Do you identify as male, female, other, prefer not to say? If we were halfway through our data collection at the moment, we would notice that there were 62 mums and 6 dads who did the lunchboxes. So again, that's telling us something. So it's kind of a good opportunity to keep track of what's happening with your data as you go along before you finish. Now, another thing that's really cool during data is you can share the report with your team and say, well, this is what's happening at the moment. Does anyone have any questions or queries? Should we recruit in a different way? You can change up some of your strategies. And then the final thing that you do once you've done all this, you've collected all your data, you've ended your survey, and usually when you end your survey, it should be pre-decided either a time limit or the number of participants, and you should end the survey at those predetermined time or participant numbers, because continuing and for a longer period of time or for more participants actually is a way of manipulating your data. So you should always have those determined timings or numbers that you're going to stop at. So a predetermined stop of the survey. Once you have done that and you've collected all your data and you're ready to analyze, you want to go to your data analysis tab. And you want to export and import, export your data, and that will give you the option to send it over to Excel for data cleaning or SPSS or to a Google Drive where everyone can work on it. Make sure also that you go to your survey and right to the front page at projects. And here in this, you close your survey. I'm not going to do that because for some reason ours is still active, even though we're not recruiting still. But you go and close your survey so that no more participants can participate. Excellent. We did so well. Any questions that I can field? Let's have a look in the chat.
Seem to have gone quiet for questions, but just jump in, people. Well, we've got Megan. Oh, there we go. There's a couple.
All of them are answered. That's good.
Oh, great.
If you do have any questions after or while you're constructing your survey, feel free to email me at any time. I'm happy to answer any questions. I would, while you are constructing your surveys, I would have maybe the workshop open and you can fast forward and rewind me, pause me while you're going along.
Great. Excellent. And
And
you
make
said very comprehensive. So that's good.
That's good. And just as is in the chat there, Michelle says, and Katie says, make sure when you do sign up, you sign up with SCU. Otherwise, you won't have that predetermined scale look and feel of the SCU template, which is really handy because then you don't have to make any decisions about how it looks and feels. Well, thank you, everybody. We did well for timing as well.
You did. Perfect. And
Yay.
I can see we're going to have some very interesting research projects come out of this.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, good luck, everybody, for your psychology honours theses. It's a really exciting year, so
Yeah.
enjoy.
And just before we go, just a quick mention that we'll have Megan back on the April the 11th, and she's going to do an introduction to statistics and SPSS.
Yeah, very
So
beginner level.
Keep an eye on your student emails for that. All right. Well, thanks everyone for your time.
Thank you, everyone.
Well done, Megan. Do you want to stop the record?
Yeah, I can do. Let me see. Can I find it? Oh, it's so tricky, isn't it?
It isn't. You've got a lot of things open.